just is in Blender?
Hey, I'm Kat. I'm in Burbank, and I'm a screenwriter, and I've kind of been using Blender recently to do some like motion capture shorts and comic books, just to kind of like tell my story. It's experimenting.
Cool. Thanks. All right, Paul, looping back
All
to you.
right. I think, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, good. I'm Paul Tierney. I live in West Los Angeles, and I'm a writer, producer, and I discovered Blender in 2009, back in the old days. And I look at it as a great tool for visual effects.
Cool. Thanks. Uh, G. Pritzpa, um, interested to do an introduction? Maybe not. Well, okay. Well, if you feel like it, jump on. Hey, Steve. Thanks for joining. We're just doing quick intros. If you could just tell us where you're located and what your gist is in Blender. Oh, you're on mute. You need to unmute. Oh, no, we still can't hear you.
Yeah, the mute's at the bottom left.
Yeah, he's Steve's unmuted. I think he needs to set up his mic. All right, Steve, we'll loop back to you. David Petratos, you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. Hi, I'm David Petratos. I'm in Illinois, and I use Blender for visual effects and other similar things.
And you have by far the coolest virtual background on this call.
Oh, I thank you. It was I think it was made by Beeple on Twitter.
Yeah, he makes great stuff. Okay. And Myers?
Yeah. Hi. My name is Matt Myers, and I'm from San Diego. And yep, good to see you guys. I am a product design engineer, and I have been using Blender for consumer product design and some machine learning.
Cool. Yeah. I spotted a machine learning Blender rotoscoping add-on the other day, and I was thinking about you.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Well, actually, got a link to it, so I could show you guys. Great. Steve, did you get your mic working? No? Okay, that's fine. Victor, want to do a quick intro? And that's okay if you want to opt out. Claudio, how about you?
Hi, I'm Claudio from Los Angeles, and I've been using Blender for a long time, since the last century, I guess. So off and on. I stopped using it for a long time until Cycles came back. So
Cool.
yeah, so I've been using this for a while, and now I'm using it mostly for visual effects and to do all kinds of things. Now I'm doing a storyboard for a movie, so I'm finding the grease pencil particularly useful.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Claudio. Carter, want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. Hello, I'm Carter. I'm from Menlo Park, California. So first, I didn't know if I was supposed to be here because Sean shared it on Twitter as like an LA meetup, and I was like, "Am I allowed to be here?" But yeah, I'm a filmmaker and a visual effects artist. I've been using Blender since I want to say like 2007, but like lightly on and off for various graphics and 3D tasks in my movies. And then in the past like year or two, I've gotten way back more into it and actually been using it in earnest. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Carter. If you have a link to where we can find your movies, drop it in the chat. I'd love to check it out. And I think Pixelwix may be the only person. Pixelwix, if you'd like to do an intro. Or not. Okay. Awesome. Anyone else that I missed? I know there's.
I think my microphone works.
Oh yeah, David, please introduce yourself. Yeah, Steve.
That's all right. You can go ahead.
All right, Steve, back to you. Last
Yeah,
but not least.
so I'm Steve Ernst. I've been using blenders since like 2010 or so, when the 2005 rollout happened. I've been using it professionally really since 2018, and since then I've grown a lot in my modeling skills and all that sort of thing. So it's been a good time.
10, 12, 15. Okay, we got about 18 people here. So we generally tend to get folks trickle in, which is fine. And we'll just we'll go ahead and get kicked off. So Dave, you ready to stream or broadcast? Okay. Oh, cool. All right, so I'll go ahead and get kicked off. So welcome everybody.
Hello, my friends.
Welcome everybody to the LA Blender user group meeting. We can call it the extended LA Blender user group meeting. We welcome everybody. There's more than one group in LA. LA is such a big and distributed place that everybody's welcome. People from San Diego, of course, welcome. I grew up in San Diego, love it. So people in Orange County and so on and so forth. So we have this is kind of a typical agenda for this sort of call. We usually do kind of a what's new with Blender. We have an interesting one this time because we haven't really had one of these interactive meetings since November, so it's been a really long time. We typically try to meet like once every 3 months or so whenever there's a major Blender release, but COVID-19 kind of threw that into a tailspin, and we had World Blender Meetup Day in March. So, somebody's found the drawing tool. All right. Okay.
Come on, man.
Just keep it PG.
All right. Thanks, Dave. So we had World Blender Meetup Day in March, and so and they're back. All right. So anyways, so we'll go through. We have Sean Kennedy presenting on lens distortion and object tracking, all super fresh, just made it into the code. We have David talking about library overrides, adaptive sampling, which I'm personally very excited about. Oop, what happened there?
Hey guys, if you look, there's somebody whose name is spelled, it's Gan A Ria. I'd suspect that person's probably the suspect.
Okay. Anyways, we normally have like a social break. One of the great things about this meeting is we have these breaks all the way throughout where you can go meet your peers, talk about whatever it is that you're interested in. We're not really sure how we're going to run that virtually, but we maybe have some ideas, so we'll see. And we've left a large part of this meeting for you guys to present. So one of the best parts of this meeting is that people come with their own projects they've done in Blender, and we get to hear about all sorts of amazing stuff. LA is like ground zero for TV, movies, game development. So would love hearing what you're doing. So if you have something to share, queue it up, and when we get to that section, you can desktop share and show us what you're doing. I'm going to do a demo of VR scene inspection. So I'm lucky enough to be giving this presentation from my CG workstation at home. So I got my VR set up. So I'll kind of show you a new tool that's basically comes straight into Blender 2.83. And we have an Ask Me Anything session if we have time, where we've got some Blender professionals on the phone here. We'll answer any questions you have. So without further ado, I usually throw this slide in for our bigger meetings because we sometimes get people that wander in that have never used Blender at all. So it's at this point, I usually explain, it's modeling, sculpting, 2D drawing with grease pencil, texturing and shading, rigging and animating, both 2D and 3D. It does rendering, both real time rendering in the viewport and path tracing. So, making really beautiful images, motion tracking, compositing, visual effects. We'll hear about some of that later, video editing. And the thing that draws people to Blender is, of course, the fact that it's free usually, and they usually stay because the software is really amazing for starters, but also the community is really great. So these are just some photos of like our group. We typically meet like here on the west side of LA, and then we go out for beers or lunch and drinks afterwards. So it's a really great group. And it's at this point I usually kind of crack open Blender and whoops, you guys are probably not seeing that. Let me share the whole desktop. Share screen. Yeah, share my whole screen here with sound. There we go. So this is Blender. This is specifically Blender 2.83. This is a build from just last night. So, this is kind of the tool that we use. And if you're interested, you can actually go grab the tool from Blender BuildBot. So these are some resources you should know, right? The website, Blender Nation, is like the LA Times of Blender. Blender Communities is where you go chat to get ask questions and get feedback on your art. Blender Artist is kind of where Blender Artist is where you go to get feedback on your art, ask questions. BuildBot's where you get early releases of Blender. And then these are 3 sites that I would recommend if you're learning Blender and you just want to learn more. So these guys are great sites that produce quality content. And I'm going to start with a straw poll. So what I'd like you guys to do, and I'll drop this into the meeting chat, is I just want to take a quick poll. So we go. Where's the chat? There we go. Hold on. Yeah, I wish I could have made it a little shorter for you guys. Alt H. Alt H. Why am I not getting the? You typed it in? All right. Okay, cool, guys. So go ahead and vote. And
does this microphone work better? Oh, good. Then yes, absolutely, you can.
all right. So it looks like we have 8 votes.
I'm trying to reduce. I got to get back to it. I can't figure out how to get back to it. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Oh, there we go. We got 9 votes. Wow. I'm thoroughly impressed with how many people we have at the advanced level. That's cool. Yeah, this is really awesome. There's this is free to use. You can only create 2 polls in the free version, but usually that's enough for our meetings. So we have a couple of masters. That's pretty cool.
I was able to follow the QR code on my phone.
Oh yeah, that works too. Yep, I should have mentioned. All right, cool. Well, that's fantastic. So I think 13 is a good number. If you're trying to get to the poll, please continue to do so. We're always trying to make this meeting better, and knowing about you and what interests you, that actually helps a great deal. So, all right. So let's talk about what's new with Blender. I'm gonna break out my phone here and time myself so I don't go too long. And Dave and Sean, if we can maybe keep each of our sessions down to about like 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
All right, so there we go. Okay, I got a timer going. So, wow. So it's been since November, right? So we've actually had 2 Blender releases. Blender 2.82 and then 2.82a happened in between when we met in November and now. And Blender 2.83, which is due basically like June 3rd, I think is when they're targeting, is the next major version of Blender. And it's really exciting. There's a lot of features they're cramming into it. It's also what's known as a long-term release. So LTS means that the Blender Institute will support it for 2 years for studios that want to commit to Blender, but they need a stable, maintained version for long-running projects. So it has a completely revamped grease pencil drawing engine with all sorts of new modifiers and tools and visual effects tools within that. It has a new volume object. So you can import your OpenVDB items from Embergen, like one of our LA Blender folks was demonstrating at World Blender Meetup Day. Really cool. It has lots of UI improvements, lots of polish for, especially for animation editors. There's a bunch of physics improvements to hair and cloth and fluids. There's been modeling upgrades, including to the multi-resolution modifiers back, which is exciting for people that are taking up sculpting. And speaking of sculpting, there's just huge numbers of sculpting improvements. So if you're going to start sculpting, it's a great time to start. I actually bought a new pen display it comes in today, actually, just so I could start playing around with Blender sculpting more. And so we have new brushes, we have features like face sets and voxel remeshing. We have cycles, the render. We now have adaptive sampling, which directs samples to parts of the image that need more sampling, which is fantastic. We have in viewport optics denoising. So if you have a NVIDIA RTX video card, you actually can do rendered ray traced viewport with AI-based denoising, which is fantastic. There's been a bunch of shader node updates to enhance what we can do with nodes. Improvements to volume rendering in Eevee. We now have the ability to do render passes, which I'm kind of picturing Sean's face lighting up whenever I hear there's more support for render passes. So hopefully helpful with compositing tasks. We have an updated light cache for Eevee. We have better hair transparency. We now have this virtual reality scene inspection, which is the very first step for integrating virtual reality into Blender and allowing you to kind of go into your scene and get up close and personal with Suzanne or whatever other model you're using. There's been improvements in animation and rigging, specifically around baking, constraints, and audio, and loads more features. There's like a crazy number of features that's been put into this version, and I'm really excited because they've spent the last Blender development group has spent the last 2 weeks just making sure it's as stable as possible. So they've been doing what's called a bug curfew.
Curfew, yeah.
Bug curfew, I think is what they call it.
Yeah,
so they've basically just been bug fixing for 2 weeks, which is one of the reasons why it was meant to release this week. And that's the reason we scheduled this call on this day. But they delayed it by a week just to make sure that they stomp out as many bugs as possible. Any questions on any of that before we move on? I recommend, that's interesting. I recommend before you check out the release notes. So 2.83 release notes are out. Wow, release notes for 2.90 are already getting going. But you could dive into any one of these, and if you want to learn more about sculpting, you can see demos. You can go read about the new face set features. You can do all that kind of stuff. So all the information's online about it. All right. So since our last meeting, right, it's kind of difficult to summarize what's happened since November. That's a really long time to try and summarize. So what I've done is I've just taken kind of a smattering of things that have happened to give you an idea of the sorts of things that are going on with Blender. So first off, Blender Summer of Code is going on. So every year, Google donates money to open source projects to improve them, to hire developers. And so we have a whole series of projects that are going on to improve Blender. And you can go read about each one of these. Some of these are really cool. Epic, who makes Unreal Engine and also Fortnite, is probably making money hand over fist with Fortnite, has actually given a mega grants to Krita, Godot, and Armor Paint, which is fantastic. In addition to the giant mega grant they gave to Blender recently, they're kind of doling out money to open source projects, which is fantastic. Just makes me love them even more. There's over 300,000 free models on Sketchfab. So if you didn't know, Sketchfab is a site for you to host your models. You can actually fully animate them. Looks a little bit like this. So you just click, downloads the model, and then you can go in 3D and spin around it and check it out. There's actually an awesome add-on to Blender that lets you download those models directly into the viewport. So 300,000 free models. There's no reason to start your own, not to start your own animation project, even if you don't have modeling skills. HDR Light Studio has started to develop work to make a connector in between Blender and their product. So this is a screenshot from that below. So that's kind of exciting. We're starting to see kind of more commercial package support for integrating into Blender. And that's just one of the latest. So, in terms of software, sorry, I'm just checking my time to make sure I'm going fast enough. All right, 7 minutes left. All right, so from a software perspective, ADM Pro Render is an alternative to Cycles. It's honestly fairly feature comparable. It's if you haven't checked it out, I recommend you do. There's a tool called Wonder Mesh. If you haven't heard about it, it's an add-on that allows for parametric primitives. So basically, parametric primitives are kind of when you add a sphere and a cube and that sort of thing. You're given this one pop-up window where you can adjust the parameters of those, like number of, I don't know, the radius of a circle or whatever. But then after you modify it, that pop-up disappears and you're basically stuck with a immutable mesh that you have to go in and tweak manually. But parametric primitives allow you to continue to modify the basics of those primitives over time. So this is a paid-for add-on. The reason I try to put little dollar signs next to things that cost money, but of course, all add-ons for Blender are, in theory, also released as open source. So this WMesh add-on is actually released on GitHub. So if you want to play with it, I strongly recommend you support the developer. But if you want to play with it, it's out there. Blend Shell is a 3D printing add-on that lets you basically hollow out your stuff before 3D printing. I figured since there's all these sculpting tools coming in Blender that we may all take an interest in 3D printing. Adam's Crowd, crowd simulations, is actually a commercial crowd sim tool, and Tangent is working with them because they're using it for one of their productions at Tangent Animation Studios, and they're working with the Adams Crowd software folks to connect that into Blender. So that's kind of exciting. This is this is the AutoMask ML tool that I was talking about earlier. So basically, this uses machine learning to automatically create masks for rotoscoping, which is pretty exciting. If you've ever had to do that manually, you'll understand what a pain in the ass it is. So it uses PyTorch, which is pretty cool. And I think this is part of a larger trend. We're going to see more and more people building AI, machine learning, deep learning into Blender. And we have some of our own people that are on the call here are doing that. So the Blender benchmark, if you haven't seen it, this is a really excellent way to compare your machine to others. It's also a good way if you're thinking about buying a piece of hardware, either CPU or GPU, finding out how good it is with Blender. We have a bunch of add-ons for managing alpha brushes. There's a new version of the LuxCore render. Again, it's an alternative to Cycles. There's a new version of Krita, of course, and Inkscape 1.0, which is a vector-based drawing tool, has just been released. So these are two really powerhouses of open source digital content creation. Blender's Power Sequencer kind of enhances the video sequence editor with a lot more functionality. There's a new version of that out. So our very own Blender 2020 recordings are out. So this is our World Blender Meetup Day channel. We've actually released in 4K the recordings from our World Blender Meetup Day. There's like 17 hours of Blender talks on here, and some from our LA.blend participants. So recommend you check them out if you're looking for great Blender content. Let's see, what else? Oh, so this is interesting. So Blender Nest is a YouTube podcast that started up. That's basically a bunch of Blender tutorial developers, kind of internet celebrities, and they all get on and talk about a specific topic. So if you're like me, I'm always looking for great Blender audio topics so I can go walk my dogs and listen to Blender stuff. If you're looking for resources to do kind of some basic animation, you may want to check out something called Settlers. This is part of the Blender Cloud, which requires a subscription. But Settlers is a series of characters and rigs and environments that you could use to make your own movies with. Available for free if you have a cloud subscription. And then in the training department, there's a bunch of trainings from the Blender Foundation. Like there's a stylized character workflow that's really quite extensive. You create,
Hi,
you know,
I'm Julian
this
Kaspar,
type of
and in this
character.
video I will show you the workflow.
And they take you through kind of start to finish how to do that. There's a grease pencil fundamentals course. There's a scripting for artists that's been updated to Blender 2.8. And then over on CG Cookie, which again requires a subscription, although some of the modules of these courses I'm about to talk about are also free, usually the first couple of them. But there's a fundamentals of digital lighting that's actually really quite good. Recommend you check it out if you have a CG Cookie subscription. I'm personally doing the digital sculpting course at the moment, which is great. And then there's this kind of really comprehensive course called the Blender Encyclopedia by CG Masters. So these guys are also really great. This is like a soup to nuts, everything about Blender, and it's really meant for beginners on up. So, you know, if you're looking for kind of a comprehensive, how do I learn Blender course, this looks like a great one. I haven't personally taken it, but recommend you check it out. So if you've been hiding under a rock and not on any of the Blender discussion forums, you may not have seen Skywatch. This is a science fiction short made by one of the people that's Colin Levy, who have done work with the Blender Foundation on some of their projects. It's a really excellent short. It has some celebrity cameos in it. Whole thing is done in Blender. This is just a breakdown on like, you know, some of the tools and techniques, visual effects and CG tools and techniques that they use to make this. But really amazing short. If you haven't watched it, I recommend you check it out. Colin's got a whole bunch of like how he did these things on his YouTube channel. Let's see. So there's a new movie coming out on Netflix called Maya and the Three by Tangent Animation. So they're the ones that did Next Gen. So everybody's kind of really excited about what this is going to look like. I think it's pretty early days for that. If you missed it, out on Netflix, there's a Blender-made movie called I Lost My Body. This is actually done with using Blender, and I think there's a lot of grease pencil in this, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, non-photorealistic, winner of a bunch of awards. So, and then Coffee Run is the latest short that's happening from the Blender Foundation. Look at that, almost exactly on time. Okay, so Coffee Run is the latest short. It actually premieres next Friday. So mark your calendars. It's going to premiere on most likely YouTube next Friday, but 2D side scroller type thing. It looks really beautiful. We actually had the artists responsible for this on World Blender Meetup Day talking about it. So if you want an exclusive sneak peek, go ahead and check that out. All right, and with that, I'm gonna stop and see if anybody else has any announcements that they want to update the group on. Any events, books, classes, courses, industry happenings, anything else that we should know about? Oh yeah, let's hear about it.
What's it called?
Yeah. Go for it. Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Now.
Right on.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Anything from anyone else? Going once, going twice. All right, excellent. Well, I think we'll change speakers and Sean Kennedy. Do you mind taking the mic?
I think I'm switching with David now, maybe?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so we have David Andrade talking about library overrides, adaptive sampling, wave textures, lots of other stuff. So Dave, you have the mic. Go, take it away. Sure.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. Let me get my screen share going. Here we are. Okay, can you guys see that? And I'm going to move the little faces.
Yep.
Yep, good. Okay, cool. So there are a lot of things that are in 283 that are really quite valuable and important. I actually really do genuinely recommend everyone check out the release notes because they're actually really invaluable. There's so much that gets added in there with even little demos of how everything works. And I wanted to cover 3 that I think, I mean, they're really random. One's texturing, one's rendering, and one's just general workflow. But they're all really, really awesome stuff to consider, especially library overrides. So we'll start with that first. We're going to make a quick character, and I I'm just going to make a quick character, and we're going to rig this character really fast. This is going to be like, you know what? Actually, we'll even add 2 bones really quick. And if anybody doesn't know what I'm doing, I'm more than happy to kind of like describe all the shortcuts and everything.
Hey, Dave, you make sure you're sharing the right screen. We're looking at...
Oh, we're looking at the wrong one? Okay, 1 second. Zoom. I even get messed up with Zoom. 1 second. Here we go. Okay.
We love it. We hate it. Great.
All the
so
same.
Glad to see a security button at the bottom of it, though.
There you go.
Cool.
Okay. So let's talk about library overrides. It's like one of the most important bits, right? So all we're going to do here is I've made a monkey. And if you shift click armature, also known as a rig, you can control P and make automatic weights. And then if you click on this monkey and go into pose mode, this monkey is now animated, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so now the next thing that you can do is save this out, and I'm just going to put this on my desktop really quick. You can't see that part of it, but I'm just saving out this character. And now let's go pretend you're in a brand new scene. Let me make sure actually that that's saved. Okay, it did. Let's go pretend you're in a brand new animation scene, right? You're in a brand new place. And this is your cool, amazing set. And we'll just go ahead and add some cool stuff back here. All right, so this is your beautiful set. So your typical workflow to get a character into this scene is to file link. And again, you can't see this thing. I'm just linking in the character. That's all I'm doing. I'm just linking it in. And actually, you know what? I do want to bring up this part. So file link, you find your character, and then you link in that collection, right? So file link, and then you link in that collection. Okay, so you want to do this, and I'm just going to save this out as my scene. You want to do this because you can have one person working on the scene and one person working on the character. Or even if it's just like, hey, I'm an independent person, I don't have a team, that's okay. You still want to do a linking workflow, because now what you can do is update the character to whatever you want. So in this case, we'll make him red. And we'll go to like the viewport display and make it red too. Or pink. Yeah, we'll go with pink. So now what you can do is you can update your character, and it'll update all the scenes that that character has been linked into. So it's a good workflow, whether or not you're working in a team or by yourself, right? And you can do all sorts of things, by the way. You can like shade smooth this thing. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Shade smooth the character. You can add modifiers to it. You can do all sorts of stuff. And because you are linking, that will, as you can see here, that will propagate to all the scenes that it's linked into. Now, in years past, what you would have to do to actually animate it, because right now I can't touch the ears. I can't do anything with those ears. I can just move around this whole base of a character. In years past, you would do this. You go to Relations, make proxy, and that would create a... It's kind of weird. I guess the word proxy is really the only way to kind of describe it. That would create like a proxy of the animation or of the character, and you could modify that to some degree. Now, in, I believe it was 281 or 282, they introduced this thing, make library override. So object relations make library override, and you can create an armature, as I've just done here. That's all I did, so I'll just do that again because it went really quick. So make the library override. I can pick what I want to override, and I want to do the rig. Blender calls rigs armature, so armature. And now I can click on this rig, which is right here. And there's also this little button called in front. Oh, actually, it's disabled. Oh, that's interesting. That's good to know. I'll get back to that. So anyways, now that I've gone ahead and made this, I can override and do whatever I want to it and animate it, and it's pretty cool. And if I save this, I can go back to my scene really quick. I'm sorry, I can go back to my character really quick. I can change the color of this character to say green, and I'll just do them on both sides. I'm going to just save that really quick. come back to my awesome animation scene, and look at that. It still respects the fact that I've changed the material, and I can go ahead and animate with it, which is great. And then I can set eye and set keyframes, all sorts of stuff, and it works. It actually works really well. But as we just discovered all together here, it does have a couple of caveats. A lot of things are grayed out. As you can see here, I cannot change the color of the character in this scene that I've linked it into. There is a hope in the future that you will be able to do that, but at this point in time, you can't. There's even little settings. I can't change a lot of object data in here. It just won't let me. I can imagine someone here's going, well, I want to change it per scene. I want to find a way to do that. And you actually can do that. There's this little button. You're going to see a link with like an arrow through it, and it might be kind of small on some people's monitor, so I'm going to just make my interface a little bit bigger so you can see it and really appreciate it. It's this little arrow through a link. If you click on that, I'm actually going to do it on the monkey. If you click on that, that will effectively create like an append, or if you don't know what the term means, it's kind of like a copy and paste. It breaks the link, and now I can go ahead and edit the data. You need to do that twice. You need to do that both on the object level and on the data level. You got to break it twice. And now that you've done that, you can go ahead and break the material and go ahead and change the material to whatever you want. However, if you do this, naturally, you can't get back to the old one. So if I come back to this character, and we'll just change the viewport display, we'll make it like whatever that color is, kind of goldish. If I change the original character, come back to my scene, as you can see, because I've broken that link, I can't go back to that original thing. There is a way to, if you're really clever, you'll see this little drop down. You can just click on it and go to character blend, and that will effectively restore the link. You might note that that link is now back, or you could just break it. So it's up to you. It's still a really nifty system though, and I really do recommend using it. So that is the process of object overrides, and you can find that here. Make library override, and it only works if you file link something. Another thing that's really handy is adaptive sampling, which the best way to kind of demonstrate that is to just do it. So it only works on cycles, naturally, because it's like a heavy cycles kind of rendering thing. So we're just going to like make a scene really quick, and we'll make this like really hard. We'll go ahead and make it like some kind of color, but things get really hard when you have like transmission in alpha. That's when things get really expensive, when you're trying to render stuff. So that looks like it's pretty crazy. We'll even add a little bit of roughness to it, so it's kind of shiny, and go ahead and do that. Now the only reason I'm doing this is because I want to make this scene a little hard to render, and I am not going to turn this button on, but that's where that is. And I will, however, render this at 50%. So we'll just go ahead and click render, and we'll let the thread ripper rip through it, which is ripping through it actually quite fast, which is awesome. And now we have a scene that's been rendered, and this is a part you want to pay attention to. It took 11 seconds, 0.38 milliseconds or whatever. So pay attention to that. Now let's make a second slot, and all we're going to do is come back up to render and turn on adaptive sampling. If you leave it to 0, it'll be automatic, and just run it again. And this scene is not terribly complex, so we might not see a real big appreciable. Oh, well, actually, yeah, we can. Look at that. So now if you hit 1 and 2 on your keyboard, you can cycle between both slots up here. And this is the important part. Our first render without adaptive sampling took 11.38, and then the second one took 9.96. So someone who's really fast at math can say, hey, that's like a 5 or 10%, decrease in time. Your memory will go up. If you take a look at that, your memory does go up. Again, this is not like the hardest scene in the world, so naturally it won't take too long, nor will it grow too much. But the point is that adaptive sampling is going, hey, I don't need to sample this area as much because it's pretty clean as it is. However, over here where things are dark or transmissive, etc., I need to have more time and more samples spent here. So the moment that the algorithm detects that there's less noise, it moves on and thus speeds up your rendering because it doesn't need as many samples to resolve this really clean area. But up here, it will need way more samples. It'll hit a cap, whatever your cap is, which I guess you could pull up your sampling and that's what it would be. So whatever your cap is it would hit. But that is one of the best things, though, is that adaptive sampling literally speeds up your renders, and all you do is click it. And if you're like really crazy, you can fiddle with all the settings. If you don't want to use adaptive sampling, the algorithm is actually built in here, progressive multi-jitter. Don't ask me how it works. I don't know how it works. I will tell you that it was written during the High Castle days by Lucas Stockner, and I'm sure it went through a lot of revisions since it made it into 283, but it's all of my render TDs say that this is like the best thing to use. But now, if you don't want to deal with any of that and you just want to hit a button, that's all you need to do. Hit adaptive sampling. It turns off progressive multi-jitter for you, and it does all the other code figuring out. And like one button, you've already sped up your renders quite significantly. Okay, we're almost out of time, so we're going to do one more cool thing. We're going to make a wave texture, and it helps to do that on a monkey. So I'm just going to do this part really fast, and there's nothing too crazy here. So we have ourselves a monkey, and we're going to make a brand new material on this monkey, and we'll go to material preview. All right, so in here you can Shift A, add a wave texture, and I know there's a few beginners here, so I want to point this out. There's an add-on. There's an add-on called Node Wrangler. So add-ons, type in Wrangle Node or Node Wrangler, it'll come up. Turn that on, and you can hit Control-Shift, left-click, and that will auto-complete your little node tree, your shader tree. It's really handy. So that's what I just did there. So Control-Shift-click, and now we have this. And if you've seen a wave texture before, you can imagine what it is. It just, we just get waves, and we can like offset it and stuff. So that's cool. But then you can also distort that wave. So now you have this like wicked kind of look to it. And then on top of that, in 283, they added way more stuff: detail, detail scale, and detail roughness. So I'm going to add some detail here. And you can see that it starts to get kind of really weird like that. And then you can add detail scale, which I'll just do it with a shift, which starts to give you kind of like a marbly feel, or you could, with a little bit of like work, you could probably even make this feel a little bit more like a literal wave, like a water or oil kind of displacement. You can add some detail roughness, which it helps to actually turn this on. So you can add some roughness to it, and now you get these like really weird moire kind of like patterns. And if you just move the scale a little bit slowly, well, you can kind of see what's happening. It creates this like wicked patterns. I'm going to make the scale overall really tiny. Let's go about here. So and you can just keep playing with this and just get some really interesting weird little patterns. Sometimes rather, you'll see that you hit a hard limit of like 1. Sometimes you can type in crazy numbers like 1, 2, or 5, or even negative. Sometimes Blender will let you get away with it, sometimes it won't. So feel free to experiment with that. And then once you're done, you can create a phase offset, or if you're even crazier, all you have to do is hover your mouse over, hit I, that'll set a keyframe, and then go somewhere else in time, and move your phase offset, hit I again. And now if you play that, you have yourself this like crazy looking wave thing. And I love it because you can do all sorts of stuff. You can, of course, go across in different ways. You can change how it works. Instead of being bands, maybe it's a ring. And naturally, you could see like, oh, maybe this could be a power-up, or it could literally be a wave, or whatever. And because it's It's like a black and white kind of height data thing. You can feed that into literally a height and displace your water, and now you have like water with this really cheap node. It's not really expensive to render it. So those are just 3 of the things that are in 283. Library overrides, adaptive sampling, which changes your render speeds, it improves them dramatically. And then wave texture, which there is also noise. If done noise texture also got an update to it. It has some of these similar, you can see now has distortion and roughness in there, and you can do it in 4D with distortion and blah, blah, blah. So if you just want noise and instead of a wave, you also have the same options. But yeah, just 3 of the coolest features that are out, and there's probably plenty more. Whew. Did I do that in time? I hope I did that in time.
Yeah, I think I wasn't timing you, but that felt about right. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Any questions for Dave on the stuff he's shown? I saw that there was one question in the chat for you when you were doing the library overrides.
Can you break the material and still have the object settings linked? Yeah, as I showed, you can break the material and still have the thing linked. As long as you click the little drop down and look for the L, you should be okay. I think it's the object data that you need to break, not the object itself. But that's a little triangle. But
any other questions for Dave?
It was like the quickest Blender tutorial I've ever done.
Quick is good. Awesome. Well, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, I hope you guys got something out of that. And I'm going to go pick up a mother-in-law. You guys have fun. I'll be back.
Yeah, golf clap for Dave. Yes.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Well done. All right. So let's see. With that, let's see. I'm going to share desktop real quick. So our next speaker is Sean Kennedy. He's going to talk a little bit about lens distortion and object tracking. Sean, do you want to? You ready to go?
One sec. Hold on.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear you?
There I am. I'm getting like really, really bad lag. So, yeah, that's all right. That's my life. Yeah, let me see if I. Oh yeah, there's me. Okay. So I can't. My laptop's really old, so it doesn't run 2.83 on it. So I made some quick little videos, and I can just kind of scroll through them while I talk through them, and you'll get the visuals basically.
Sounds good. Why don't you desktop share?
Let me bring it up first. Everything's going so slow on this machine right now.
Okay. Well, I tell you what. While you're bringing that up.
All right. I'm almost ready.
I'm going to take this opportunity to plug something real quick. So, here we go. So this is a call to arms because I know almost everybody on this call has like a pretty good CPU and GPU. If you own a PC and you want to dedicate some compute cycles to helping find a COVID-19 vaccine, there's a group called Folding at Home, similar to like SETI at Home. You run the small software agent on your machine, and you can configure it either to use cycles when your machine is not using them, so it kicks in automatically when your machine goes idle, or you can configure it to run full bore like I do overnight. But anyways, there's more information, Folding at Home. And I'm part of a team. This is the team number here. We're ranked 121 out of everybody on the planet. And we need more people to join us to kind of like get us up in the rankings. But it's all for a really good cause. Yeah, I'll drop that team number into the Teams chat window. All right, Sean, you ready to share?
Yeah, as long as my machine can handle it. I hope it can. It can barely handle jumping between windows. Hold on. There we go. Now I gotta see how to screen share. There it is, share screen, right? Just click that button, right?
Yep. Yeah, best to share your whole desktop rather than just the window.
How do I do that? Just screen, right? Not a particular window?
Okay. I think that's the right option. That sounds right to me.
Okay. Is this working? Everybody see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. All right, so I only have 3 quick things just to go over. It probably won't even go 10 minutes. But they're just important things for visual effects stuff if you're doing that kind of stuff. The first real short one is object tracking, which was broken for a long time. It worked in 2.7.9. It worked great. But then once the whole 2.8 series started, something broke. And I made this little video. Hopefully it's moving along. This is 2.82, where I have a face track. Is this, can you guys see this little window? Is this in the way? Let me hide that. There you go. This is just a face track I did, and I'm hopefully going to release all these face tracking videos I made, just so people have new face tracking clips to work with. I feel like everybody's still using that old Hollywood green screen thing. But anyway, you can see once you've got a scale, or I'm sorry, once you've got a track, an object track, if you scale it up, you can see down here your scene, the tracking points as they scale right here. They'll scale properly, but the face, the object that you tracked, whether in this case it's a face, it could be anything, it doesn't scale properly. So if you don't ever move your object once you've got it lined up originally, and then you scale your scene or something, if you don't ever move your object, it'll work. But otherwise, if you scale your scene in any way, your object track breaks. But that's finally fixed. Like here, you can see I scaled up the scene a little bit, and now I'm kind of repositioning the face to where the object track markers are, and it just goes a little further. You can see it just doesn't line up now. It doesn't work. So object tracking was really broken in 2.8 and on, but in 2.83 that's all fixed. So now you can go back to scaling stuff. If you like to track everything and then go into 3D and scale your scene and reposition it around, that was really hard to do in 2.82, 2.8, all that, but they fixed that. So that's wonderful news if you're into object tracking at all. Let me grab another video. Where's my little videos? There we go. These.
Hey, Sean, somebody asked, did you track that manually or?
Yeah, I tracked that manually.
Okay.
Yeah, for the backgrounds, because when you do an object track, what you want to do is you can just drop in. Your camera has to be solved basically. First, you have to solve your camera, then you can solve your object. So for camera tracks, I don't. Every once in a while, I'll place things manually, but most of the time nowadays, I just use detect features, so it's super automatic. But for object tracking, those you want to always, place your points and be real careful about what you pick and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And again, hopefully, like I said, I did a whole bunch of, I got an actor and a good camera and stuff, and went out and shot all these face tracking plates with and without markers, so you can experiment with both. So I've got all this footage and I've already processed it all, and I'm ready to put it online on my site, which is openvisualeffects.com. I want to release it there, but I want to do some tutorials first just to show, here's some stuff you can do with it. Here's some of the fun things. So I haven't got around to doing that. So once I do that, I'll release all these face tracking things. They're all HD and all that. So yeah, the other thing that I've been working on for a long time, well, not fully for a long time. Let me turn off audio. That's my site, Open Visual Effects. So on my site, I do a lot of motion tracking because obviously visual effects is putting things into live action. So you have to track stuff. And one of the big problems, especially at my work, is I work in Nuke all day. But if I try and use something from Blender, I need to move scenes back and forth, whether I track it myself in Blender and then need to get that scene into Nuke or an element into Nuke, or if our match move department uses Synthesize or PF Track or whatever they use, and then they export a scene to Nuke to me, and then I need to take that to Blender. I have to export it from Nuke to Blender. There's this whole pipeline stuff that I've been working on really hard because I deal with that all the time. And one of the big hurdles was lens distortion. Because if you've ever done any kind of a Blender track and solve, it does really good with the lens distortion, and you get these two, they're called polynomial values. There's a K1, K2, and K3. K3 is usually empty. But the K1 and K2 usually have a number in it. And if you go into Nuke and you plug that into their lens distortion thing, there's two values there. It doesn't give you the same lens distortion. So that was a big problem. And I've had people actually, when I've posted on my website tracking tutorials, people have asked, like, hey, how do you do with the lens distortion? I've always said, like, I don't know, but I'm going to tackle that someday because I haven't had to deal with it yet. Yeah, finally got into it a few weeks ago, how to tackle that exactly. I thought there might be some way to, some kind of formula that would turn these K1 and K2 values into something that Nuke could use. And I couldn't figure it out. So there is a way where you use an ST map, which is basically like a gradient of yellow and it's green and red. It ends up making yellow. This is what a ST map looks like. I lost it already. That thing. There you go. That's an undistorted one, but anyway, it's a gradient where it goes from 100% green to 0, and then 100% red to 0, and then it overlays. So basically, every pixel on this whole image is a different value. So if you warp them around and then pipe it through what's called an ST map node, the computer will know to warp whatever image is being input into that ST map node to move it wherever the ST map has moved. Because basically it gives an ID number to every single pixel. So there's a way to use that to bring lens distortion back and forth. So I worked up this whole, it was a real pain, but I worked up this whole process where and I made it easy though. I did release a node that makes it very easy. Because when you do this, when you track and get the solve, and undistort, it pushes it beyond the boundaries of the frame. So if you're working on an HD frame and you undistort it, there's two types of distortion. One where it like kind of pushes it in, and then one where it pulls it out beyond the edges of the frame, which I can show you those down here somewhere. So that's the one that goes out beyond the edges of the frame. Because it has to make it bigger to straighten everything. And if you've ever worked with Blender's compositor, which chances are you haven't, it's not very great, not very many people use it. It does not deal with overscan very well at all. For example, if you use Blender's built-in compositor and use their undistort node, and then if you bring in your footage, put their undistort node on and do your undistortion, then do a bunch of stuff to the footage and then redistort at the end, chances are pretty good that you've just lost all that data. It's going to clip it. So when you bring it back in, you're going to be missing data, which is hard to explain, but this is why I made video tutorials, and they're all up on my site. And you can see all that stuff. So I figured out a way, a lot of help from online, Twitter and Dustin, and talking through things in like Discord and stuff, and then on Twitter. But figured out a way where I made a node where all you basically have to do is drop in. There's actually two versions of the node where if you want to create these two undistort or these two ST maps, one's an undistort, one's a redistort. If you want to take those and use them in Nuke or Fusion or After Effects or whatever program, most compositing programs deal with ST maps really well. Natron will use it. You can create these super easily, and there's minimal like you don't have to worry too much about the overscan and all that because that stuff gets really confusing. I tried to make it pretty simple. There's still a couple little areas to be careful of, but that's just because I don't know coding. I don't know how to link a node to values in the property editor and things like that. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So there's two versions of this node. There's one where if you change your scene name up here, if you're working with a whole bunch of scenes, which I don't often do, so I don't really worry about it. But if you do change that scene name, you'll have to use this other version of the node where you have to plug in the render size and the overscan amount manually. But otherwise, it should just be the other node will just be able to take it automatically from all your settings over here in your render panel. But basically, all you do is you track, you solve, you have your lens distortion, you bring in this node, you open up the node, and inside the node, you'll plug in your, you have to, in the undistort and redistort, you'll have to plug in your motion track. Once you've done your solve, it'll have a name or whatever. And I've made those two nodes really bright orange inside of the group node. So just go in there, pick out your track in both of those, close it back up, and you should have, it should be able to give you a really nice, it undistorts it, but then you have to deal with the overscan, which is what you just do using the percentage symbol over here in your render panel. And sometimes it takes a little guesswork, like you have to figure out, you type in a few values. You don't want that much border around your edges, so you have to crop it down a bit. But once you get it, then you can very easily plug in, instead of having your footage plugged in, you plug in your ST map, which I'm also giving on my site. You can download a whole bunch of ST maps pre-made for you, so you don't have to worry about finding one online or making one and all that. All the usual film sizes that anybody would need. You can just download a little zip file and they're all in there ready to go. So yeah, and then that's what it looks like. You'll get this undistort one, and then you'll get and you basically just save it out. Just go under image, save. You don't have to render anything. You just save out these two images, and then there's the redistort one. I think they have names like pin cushion distort and barrel distort, but I never use those, so I never remember which is which. But yeah, then once you go in your compositor, whether it's Natron, Nuke, Fusion, I think it worked in Fusion. Yeah, I was working with Dustin about getting it working in Fusion. So it should work everywhere. But yeah, then you just bring those in. You can use your standard ST map, and you can move your lens distort around. You will also have to render all your CG with that same overscan. So once you figure out your overscan, you'll have to like write that down and or keep track of it and render your CG with that same overscan. Otherwise, when you distort your CG to fit your plate, there could be clipping on the edges where it was, where it was outside the frame edge. So it's tricky, but if you deal with visual effects stuff and moving CG into live action plates a lot, then this should all make sense and it should help that workflow a lot. Because as far as I know, nobody else has figured out the whole solution and made it simple and easy. There is also an add-on you have to get to use with it. It's called the Overscan add-on, basically, which I think was made by Lucas. I can't remember his last name. Working with Barnstorm Visual Effects, because they do a lot of CG and Blender, so they needed the Overscan thing. So
Lucas Stockner?
I don't think there's another one.
Different Lucas. Okay.
Yes, and that's why I can't remember his name. Stockner who always comes to mind, but I don't think it's him that made it. But yeah, if you go to my website, there's posts on all this and links and downloads and all that stuff, videos, so you can really get into it. But that's the way to figure all this out. If you're moving lens distortion out of Blender into any other program, this will do it. And then also during that whole process, I was also talking to Sergey at the Institute. When I first started the process, I was asking him, there's got to be a way to get those K1 and K2 values to match whatever Nuke is doing. So I would send him like nuke formulas and say, is there any way to make our formula work with that? And he didn't. He's like, no, there's no way. These are totally different. And then one day he just sent me. Um, he's like, here, try this, and he sent me a build a blender, and it had a new lens distortion model called Nuke in it. So that's spectacular. But that's not going to be in 2.83, sadly. It's going to be in 2.9, which is down the road a ways. So that ST map thing still may be super useful for a while. But when 2.9 eventually does land, it does have this lens distort nuke model where you just set that before you solve, and you can plug those values directly into nuke lens distort, and it works great. So there's also a real quick video on my site about that as well if you want to watch it, if that's of any interest to you. And yeah, I think that's really it. That's all I wanted to show. Just some. I keep pushing for more visual effects improvements. There's some tracking improvements they made. It's got to be 4 or 5 years ago now that are still not in master. That every time I email Sergey, I'm like, hey, what about this one? Hey, what about this one? All it's got to do is be put in. It's already done. So things still aren't in there. But yeah, anyway, that's the stuff I have managed to kind of get in there. So
cool.
And that is it.
All right. Thanks, Sean.
Sure. Is there any? If there's questions or whatever, or yeah, just chat or whatever.
Yeah, there were some questions in the chat. So like somebody had asked, how do you determine the values for K1 and K2? And there was a response from the group saying you could have Blender calculate it during the camera stall.
Excellent. Yep. I'm going to do my stop share. There we go.
Yeah, I just want to get a little deeper into that. This is Claudio. I've been trying to get OpenCV to do to calculate the distortion, and OpenCV has a really nice utility where you can do like a checkerboard type of thing where you photograph it from several angles, and it'll calculate for you the lens distortion, the camera matrix, and all those things, K1, K2, P1, and K3. And again, the problem is that the values you get there don't coincide with Blender in any way. I mean, I guess it's the same problem you had where the rest of the world is using some other K2 and K1 and K2 way to distort radial distortion, and Blender does its own thing. So I don't know. I mean, does anyone have any information on what kind of algorithm Blender is using, or what kind of formulas for lens distortion? I mean, I'm really puzzled about this one.
You mean like what formulas are the K1 and K2 using?
Yes.
I would bet that those are online somewhere.
I would love to find that somewhere, because I've been trying. I mean, the OpenCV will be a solution to do like to really determine the lens distortion automatically, and it's actually really accurate. It's wonderful.
Right.
The problem is translating those values to Blender just doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's the typical Blender thing. Is it's hard to get it to work with other software, which they're finally, since the whole 2.8 thing, they're finally fixing all that stuff. So I don't know those formulas off by heart or where they are off by heart, but I think I've come across them in the past month or two that I've been really trying to work this out. I feel like I came across them somewhere. But if not, you might be able to get in touch with Sergey or and Kier's not around very much anymore. He's the guy that wrote all the motion tracking. But Sergey might be able to give you what those are doing exactly. He wouldn't tell me when I was asking him, how can I make these work with Nuke? And he just basically said, they won't. There's nothing you can do. Let me make a new one for you, and gave me that one. So I don't know where those values are, but I feel like I probably came across them somewhere online. So yeah, I don't know. And I've never used OpenCV for anything like that, so I don't know. I've used all the, in Blender you can set the lens distortion manually, bringing in a grid and doing grease pencil and all that. I've dabbled with that, and
Yeah,
But usually I just let it do it automatically when I do a camera solve.
yeah, no, I just feel that there's got to be a way to get more accuracy. I mean, I've done the manual way, like visually just doing the grease pencil thing and all that. And I always feel like I'm just blind guessing here because I don't really have a way to know
Right.
exactly what K1 and K2 are doing. Um, so, so no, I was just wondering. I mean, I'm really trying to get something that could be more accurate and automatic.
Yeah, yeah. Have you found when do you do any automatic camera solving, or are you just doing it on stills?
No, I've done it in motion, and I mean, right now I'm trying to do it just for stills because this is the project I'm working.
Okay.
But
Because I was wondering if you were doing it on a camera solve on a sequence, have you found any of that to be not accurate? Because usually I find that to be pretty accurate.
no, it is accurate. I mean,
Okay.
so far it looks like that. But what basically my workflow has been like to try to determine things manually. And
Right on.
by doing the green pencil and then let Blender refine it. And usually, you know, I could say I'm very close on the original guesstimate, and then
Right.
gets it way more, at least to a point where it's actually useful, where like it seems like the points in 3D match with the 2D, and you know everything seems to be working fine. Anyway,
Right on.
that was just one thing I've been obsessing on.
Right on. Yeah, lens distortion's complex and tricky and ridiculous. And, but yeah, you should definitely look around online though for if you're for those formulas. I feel like I ran across them.
I have. If you find them, please post them on your site. I mean, I would love to get a hand.
Okay, yeah, I'll put it in the comments of the Meetup site. I can throw it in there.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Sure. I can't see what else. So yeah, I'm all done. Whoever's next, feel free.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. So if anybody else has any questions for Sean, just go ahead and throw them in the chat window. And in the meantime, let's have another quick straw poll here. So which Blender skill do you need the most? So if you go to the chat window, you'll find the URL to go answer this. It looks like we've had 10 people vote. So
when you say need the most, do you mean like what we use the most, or what we're most interested in learning, or like
if we were to have sessions to teach these techniques, which one would you find the most valuable? We got 10 people voting, 20 people on the call. Anyone else want to vote and get our numbers up? There we go. Thank you, whoever number 11 you were. Awesome. All right, good. So it's, oh, look at that. So I guess our visual effects compositing session was spot on there, Sean.
Like everyone wants modeling and sculpting, huh?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? It's like the first thing you learn to be able to do CG. So, but we don't nearly have enough sessions, I think, at this LA Blender group on modeling and sculpting. Might need if you'd be interested in running a session on modeling and sculpting, just let us know in the chat window, and we'll put you in the queue for our next meeting.
I might be able to set something up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, for sure. Especially in the context of like some of the awesome projects you're doing. That's really.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thanks everybody for voting on that. So, okay. So moving on. So we have the option now. We've been going about 1 hour and 23 minutes. So we have the option now of either doing a Blender VR scene inspection, or we can take a short break. How's everybody feeling? Break, or should we continue plunging on a little bit further?
I'm all for still going. I mean, I'm just sitting here. I'm not tired, so, but it's up to everybody.
Yeah, we can still go. I'm cool with that.
Okay. All right. The session will be pretty short. So, all right, unless anybody has any objections, let's go ahead and jump into VR scene inspection. So let me just make sure I'm sharing my whole desktop here because I have a tendency sometimes to not do that. So let me share the whole screen. Okay. So what is scene inspection? So the Blender Foundation want to make it really clear that this is really just the first milestone to add VR support into Blender itself. It's really basic. All it does is it enables you to put on a head-mounted display and view your model in the scene in VR. So it immerses you basically at the camera point, and at this point, there's no interacting with content. There's no kind of controller support. You're really just in the scene, looking around as if you were basically at the camera point. But it is still super useful for pre-visualization. So so I saw Gary Klein at RSVP for this meeting. You might be super interested in this. So like if you're you know a director, or if you're trying to show something to a client, or if you're developing a VR game and you just want kind of a quick view of what it's going to look like before you export it to a game engine or something like that. Really useful tool. And so there's very active development going on here. The first version of this, unfortunately, is a little bit limited. So it requires an add-on for starters, which is fine. You just have to, it ships with Blender. You just need to enable it. There's currently only support for 2 HMDs. That's Oculus HMDs and Windows Mixed Reality HMDs, which there's many of those. And the reason is they built it on something called OpenXR, which is Open Extended Reality. It's a new standard from Kronos, brand new standard. So the head-mounted display manufacturers are still building support for it. Currently, so there's no support currently for HTC Vive and Steam VR, but you know they've all committed to support it. So as soon as they develop, apply some development resources, you'll start to see support on those head-mounted displays as well. Currently, it's running on Windows and Linux, Windows kind of out of the box, and Linux. Apparently, if you're willing to kind of get your hands dirty doing some building, it uses something called Monado to work on Linux. But like I said, it works on Windows 10, which is what I'm running here, and I'm going to be demonstrating to you. So I will say, one of the Google Summer of Code projects was to add VR controller support into Blender. So they were going to extend it. And then as soon as they announced that, Ubisoft Animation Studio said, hey, you know, we're already building that. And so they actually have a Blender build out on GraphiCall, where they've actually added controller support in. I haven't played around with it yet, but I'll probably do so after this meeting. I'll stop there, see if anybody has any questions before we get into the demo. All right, let's check the chat. Maybe. Well, I can't see the chat here. Let's see. Yeah, I can't see the chat. So I'll loop back to the chat to see if there's any questions. Let me just get into the demo here. So I'm going to start with maybe this screen because what happens is when you start Blender, you have to start it in a very specific way. So there's a script called Blender_Oculus, and that will kind of launch the underlying OpenXR support that's needed. So you start it that way, and then within Blender, if you go up here to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and you just do a search for VR, you'll see the VR scene inspection add-on here. So, so all you do is click the checkbox to enable it. Like I said, it's built in, and you'll get it as you can see. I love this about add-ons. It tells you where to find it. So it's in the 3D view sidebar VR. So over here, you'll get this extra tab. And there's a couple different features. So, you know, it does positional tracking. So if you have a big enough kind of VR setup at home, you can actually kind of walk around the room and you know, if you have wireless VR set up, you could literally walk through your model, which is fantastic. I'm in a pretty small office at the moment, so I don't have that ability, but that's all right. You could also kind of set these landmarks. So landmarks would be like in VR games when you pick a jump point and then it teleports you there. So it's really handy for avoiding the kind of motion sickness. I'm particularly prone to VR sickness, so I love this feature. But basically, you could just assign this to different cameras in your scene. So this is not my scene. This is actually one that I kind of grabbed off of Blender Artist. I wish I knew the artist name. Let me see if give me a sec. I'm definitely gonna have to give him some credit. Yeah, it's called Loft Interior. A guy named Tazeus basically put a post up on Blender Nation. I just nicked it, but I've been using it to inspect my own scenes as well. And so what I did was he's actually got like a whole bunch of cameras set up inside the scene. You can see them all at different angles. So I just grabbed a couple of them and set them to landmark. So this landmark 1, I believe, is this camera here. I set landmark 2 to be this camera here, and landmark 3 is this camera here. So you can kind of navigate around each of the rooms. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my virtual reality headset. And I'm gonna put it on. So what I've done here is I've got 2 options enabled here, show VR camera and mirror VR session. So the show VR camera will actually show where the user's head is inside the scene. And the mirror VR session means that the 3D viewpoint will follow you around inside the scene, so you guys can kind of see what I'm looking at. Whoops. I must have picked the wrong camera there. Give me a sec. Oh, let's see. Interesting. All right. Well, let me start the VR session. It'll probably snap to the right camera. So I'm going to go ahead and start that. Oh, geez, I hope this works. Okay, hold on. It's a little awkward. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm now in the kitchen in this VR scene. Hopefully you guys can see this. So I'm looking at the microwave and I'm looking at the sink. I can see the bedroom and the lounge. So if I were to move around, like walking, you'd be able to see me go there. I'm gonna click on my screen here and just jump cameras to that camera in the bedroom. So here I am, just kind of looking around, and then I'm going to jump again to the camera in the office, in the study. So this is a desk. I'm looking outside. There's obviously some screen space reflections that are showing the HDRI or whatever that's outside the window. But yeah, this is VR scene inspection. So when I take off the camera or take off the head-mounted display, that's when it zooms out to this kind of external view. I'm not sure why, but I'm going to go ahead and stop that VR session. Any questions on that? Did that work for you guys? Were you able to see what I was looking at?
Yeah, it worked fine.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was really cool.
Yeah, so now's your chance to go and meet Suzanne up close and personal. But obviously, you know, the works really makes sense for ArcViz walkthroughs, but, you know, it also makes sense for if you're just building a game and you want to know what it's going to look like from a first-person perspective. It's pretty cool. So unfortunately, you need to control all the navigation from outside of the VR session. So I usually, Blender has this mode under navigation where you can say fly or walk, and that enables your WASD keys on your keyboard, so you can kind of move around. And so that's handy where you can have the head-mounted display on and still navigate around the scene without kind of taking yourself out of the immersion.
Does that work with animations as well? Could I have like an animated character in the scene and walk up to them while they're moving?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. I mean, you're basically seeing whatever's happening inside the scene. So let me see if we can test that. Let's see.
Is it room scale or is it just 360? Like if you move your head, does it like move in the 3D space? It does. Oh, cool.
It'll move positionally with that little checkbox on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It is a little wonky, admittedly, but it does work. You can even try doing it in cycles. That's the only thing I didn't do.
All right, let's just do this. Let me do a rotation. See if I can. I need a. Let's see. Give me a few minutes, and I'll see if I can get a. Give me a timeline. There we go.
Are you gonna animate something in there?
Well, I was gonna try, yeah, but the layout kind of not modeling this particular blend file.
That's okay. Hit the little plus. Oh, there it is. Yeah, animation. Yeah. You can set a keyframe or 3.
Yeah, here we go. So that's good. Go to the end. Back to layout. Rotate, I guess. And then insert rotation keyframe. What is it? Gosh, what is it these days? It's spacebar, right? Because it changed.
For what? Oh yeah, to play.
All right, hold on. Let me jump back into the R and see if this is working. This is more exciting for me than it is for you guys. All right, there we go. Oh, I'm not seeing it. Wow, that's super interesting.
You don't see it animated?
No, I do not. That is
you
really
are. It looks like you are in the middle.
I was there for
somewhere.
a second.
Yeah,
there it is.
There it is.
Weirdly, you guys are seeing it in my viewport, but me in VR, that spinning cube is not in my scene. I'm not seeing it at all in this room. I wonder why that is.
I'm gonna actually try that out myself now.
That's really interesting.
So there's no support for like the hand controllers or anything, is there?
There's not built into this Blender version, but glad you asked. This is Graphical, and this is the Uber Animation Studio VR build. So they have one out here that actually uses the OpenXR world navigation stuff. So you can download one to check it out, but the one that's built into Blender currently doesn't have that feature. So hopefully they'll merge back sometime in the next Blender version.
Yeah, I know Unreal Engine had a really cool implementation of VR where you can just edit stuff in like the viewport and everything.
It'd be really useful for sculpting if you could use hand controllers.
Yeah.
There's a program called Oculus Medium where you can do sculpting, but yeah, if Blender had sculpting, that would be great.
Yeah, so you can see them being super handy for grease pencil and all sorts of other stuff, right? So this is really just the first milestone. I'm sure there's going to be, sculpting, grease pencil, all that. It's going to be fun. So anyway, hope that was interesting. So with that, let's see how we're doing with our straw. Oh yeah, we did the straw poll. So with that, we're kind of just going to open it up to whoever wants to do a Blender show and tell. Does anybody have any?
Yeah, actually I do. I'm You've given me an idea here.
Yeah, welcome back. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, hang tight.
So anybody that's working on any projects where they've used Blender in any aspect to do them, we'd love to hear about it.
I'm going to steal your screen real fast.
Yeah, no worries. Let me stop share. There we go.
So let's see here. This is on the Quest with Quest link. And So it's animating. I was just like curious now. I was like, wait a minute, I gotta figure this out. So if we add an image texture and we make it a new UV grid. Oh wait, not UV grid. What is it? Color grid? It's kind of nifty. And then you can like scale it up, I guess. I'm experimenting here. I have to admit, I haven't.
So did you start Blender in like VR debug mode to get those kind of like stats on the screen? Or?
Oh, that's the Oculus Quest debug mode.
Got it.
But that's interesting. Like it, yeah, you can see it, the pass through. That's really interesting. You can't go into rendered mode. Yeah, because I'm on rendered mode now in Blender, and it just stops at Eevee, which is actually kind of interesting. But then I'm really experimenting here. So what if I do quick smoke? let me just see what happens here.
You're gonna break Blender.
Okay, that's actually kind of interesting. All right, so let's stop that, and I'm gonna try one more thing. Let's try a quick smoke, but with fire now. Smoke and fire. Yeah, I'll be surprised if Blender's functional right now. I mean, it's kind of working. It's doing a fire simulation, you know, and
yeah, it's no Embergen, right?
No. So I guess oh man, you can see the frame rate. You see how it's ticking, the eyeballs are ticking, so the frame rate's really bad, but it is working. You can get like real-time VR fire effects, I guess.
Wow.
It's obviously like we're in early access, early alpha kind of stages with VR and Blender, but that's kind of neat. I didn't think that this would work, but it is actually working.
Is that volumetric fire?
Yeah.
Or oh, cool.
Yeah, it's it's a thing. Here, I'll reshare it really fast again. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like the prettiest fire, but oh, you know what? It actually looks better in this mode. Funny enough. Wow. Okay, this actually is pretty cool. It actually looks a lot better in this mode.
I was confused by how your fire was looking.
Yeah, me too. I was in like Eevee's like little preview mode. Let me what is it?
That you didn't have any lights on or something.
Right? What's that? It's not replay. Okay, here we go. I'm going to try one more thing. Sorry, Stirling.
No, take it away. Actually, if you could run things for just a little bit, I need to step away for a moment.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so I'm actually gonna cache this. Let's see here, modular. I think I'm gonna cache this before, and then I'll do it inside Blender. Oh, that's interesting. That little the little sign there. Oop. Oh, okay, that kills Blender. So it does have some limitations. Let's
so
try.
Close.
Let's try one more thing. You know, I have a scene here. Let me open up a scene really fast. The Mr. Elephant scene. That's I don't know if anyone has seen that. It's an Eevee scene. Okay, so I've not done this before. I don't know what to expect, but we're gonna go on a journey together. Oh, that's interesting. So I figured out what that little rotating, the little hourglass, that's just telling us that it's still figuring out the scene. So that, like, it's doing the cache. Okay, here we are. And then 1 second, I want to grab the camera, because that's this is actually another neat thing that you can do. Let me just search for the camera though, because I'm doing this one-handed. Where is the camera in this scene? This is, oh, Hero. It's called Hero. So Hero. So what you could do is move the camera while someone else is wearing it in VR. So you can actually do it this way. Oh, okay. This is kind of cool. Oops. Sorry, I have the Oculus debugger on though. That's probably what's kind of killing a little bit of the performance. All right, so I can move the camera, and I'm going to move it up a little bit too. And oh gosh, that I'm not going to rotate it. But anyways, so now this is the Mr. Elephant scene in Eevee, and I'm just previewing it. You know what's funny is actually the frame rate through this this screen share and this tool that I'm using. It's actually, the frame rate's pretty bad, but it's actually great on the headset. It's actually at a full frame rate on the headset. So sorry that the frame rate's a little crappy going through Zoom and everything. I think for some reason it's just acting weird, but yeah. If you built a whole scene and made it work inside Eevee, this works just out of the box, which is really awesome and really surprising.
That is super cool.
I'm just curious. I'm going to move it a little closer.
I'm curious how many people here have VR headsets at home. Just at who here has got an HMD?
I got one,
Vive.
so I'd be, I got an Oculus, so I'd be interested in trying this.
Oh. So Rob, Joseph, who else?
Not me.
Why not?
Why
I have
can't
I have some Google
Vive.
Cardboards around here somewhere, but that's it.
So does that run in any VR headset then? Is it compatible with every VR headset?
It is not. So at the moment, so the goal is that one day it will be. But at the moment, it works with Oculus headsets and with Windows mixed reality headsets.
Okay.
Doesn't work with the Vive?
No, and that's only because the folks that make the Vive haven't developed OpenXR support. So they will, because they're part of the consortium, I believe. But yeah, not yet.
Not yet, huh? Cool. I'll stop my sharing. My little headset's overheating.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a open mic time. So who's got some cool Blender projects they want to share?
Oh.
You do?
Hi, Alora wanted to share a drawing she did in grease pencil.
Oh, hi, Laura. That's the drawing we're looking at?
Yep.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Technically a flower in a monster pot.
That's awesome.
That is really cool. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'm going to say wave goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
So I met you at Scale like a couple years ago, I think it was, and joined this group and had a lot going on. I actually became a STEAM lab teacher in that time. I was kind of like on a job search, and so now I was excited to see this, and now I have a bit more time with the shutdown going on, and that is the question I had, is like how accessible this is for kids. How old is your daughter? I think you're on mute, actually.
Here we go. Yeah, she'll be 8 on Monday.
Wow. Okay. So just as you guys were mentioning this grease pencil tool, I was kind of like Googling it, and it does look like it's cool. And our laptops, we can have Blender on it. So it's like a PC that has the ability to run it.
Cool.
So yeah, it's cool just to see some of these beginnings, and I'm happy to see the course that guy was mentioning. I'll probably check that out. I'm thinking of introducing some basics. Is she able to jump on and work in Blender at all, or she just kind of is Grease Pencil kind of like its own UI? And
I haven't gotten her into the 3D aspect of it just yet. She's done some sculpting because that's pretty open up and just start drawing with it like you would on paper.
Wow.
And we'll get some pretty interesting designs out of that. But I'm kind of trying to step up from what's most familiar and introduce the new concepts like masking out the color and whatnot, and doing a solid line art over her initial sketch, and working in the unique layers system that Grease Pencil has.
So with Grease Pencil, does it use like the Apple Pencil or anything, or it has its own?
I'm using a XP Pen 12, Artist 12.
Oh, cool.
So she's working with a graphics tablet, basically.
Thanks.
Actually,
that's not working out. So she's working off of this.
It's so cool. It's really neat to see kids using Blender.
Cool.
Yeah, she's a pretty quick study on a lot of things. So yeah, just next I want to kind of figure out how to teach her how to animate it and see how far we get there.
I recently did a poll, I think it was on Blender Hangout, of what drawing tablets work well with Blender. And it was, the leading contenders were Wacom, or Wacom, however you pronounce it, and then XP Pen, and oh gosh, just the name just skipped my mind. I want to say Hawaii.
Huan?
Yeah, that's the one. Those are the other two leading contenders. Then there were a bunch of others that were kind of less so, but yeah, we're starting to get some pretty good hardware support for that. I'll see if I can drop that poll into the text chat here.
Cool.
All right. Anything else from anyone?
That's something I can share.
Yeah, I'd love to see it, David.
All right. How do I share my screen? There we go.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Can you see the After Effects window here?
Yeah, sure can.
All right. So I just finished up a horror short. And when I was working on the effects for it, I realized that I didn't really have any introduction. It kind of just started off in the bed, and there was you didn't really get an idea of where you were. And I was able to create this little, what are they called? Establishing shot in Blender using this photo. So I went to the location, I just took this photo, you can see me in the reflection there. And I was able to take that into Blender, and I cut out the different pieces. I cut out the bed, and I cut out the part of the shelf you could see. Now it looks bad in Blender, but I was able to get a good introduction shot using just a single photo. And this is the reflection over here.
That's cool.
And then I did some post work in After Effects. Let's see if I can. Yeah, so here's the output from Blender. The shelf looks really flat. And then with some post effects, it worked for the film.
Nice, that looks really good.
It's really incredible what you can do with Blender.
It is. It is indeed.
Yeah,
That's
Sean
awesome.
did all of Life of Pi with it, so.
All of Life of Pi, yes. All. Not at all. Not even close.
That's cool. If there's more information on where we can find your film, drop it into the tech chat.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, David. Anyone else? Any Blender-centric projects?
Yeah, I mean, sure, I could show something.
Yeah, I would love to.
So, let me see if I can. A while back, I was watching the Aquaman behind the scenes, and they were talking about how they did everybody's hair is CGI in that whole movie because they're underwater, so it's supposed to be like floating underwater. And I was like, hey, I have object tracking and I have Blender, and I wonder if I could do something like that. And so no, go away. Can you get screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Cool. So Goofy, and I went and I did an object track in Synthesize into Blender, and I did. So this is an older version. I don't actually have the latest version of the shot, but I managed to go in and simulate particles and do like flowy underwater hair, and I was surprised by how well it worked. But the problem is that it's because it's a simulation, so it's like really hard to art direct. So I've been working on the same shot for like 6 months, doing like a 6-hour simulation and hating how the particles look. Then I do another 6-hour simulation. I hate how the particles look. So
that's great.
Yeah, and you can see the. I don't think it's well. You can see this isn't even the right head model. You can see my ear is the wrong shape. But then I did a photo scan of my head and used that to grow the hair out of so that it actually matches the. So it's like nowhere near done. But I just thought it could be an interesting thing to show off, and I was surprised by how the parts that I thought would be hard were really easy. Like I just threw the principled hair shader on there, and it's doing all of the work, and it looks photorealistic. And then the part that I thought would be easy was the hair movement. How foolish I was, because it wasn't.
You know, in 283, they actually changed hair physics completely.
Really?
And it's more accurate. It's using like the cloth simulation physics as a base.
Oh, I am totally going to give that a go, because I've been stopping and starting on this one for weeks, getting frustrated every time the simulation doesn't work the way I want it to.
Yeah, hair dynamics and hair physics are very excruciating. I had to make carpet for a client, and I used hair particles, and that was a journey that I don't wish anybody to ever go through. But yeah, in 283, those got a big redo, and they're supposed to be more accurate and everything. And I haven't actually played with it directly, but it looks really good.
I'm totally going to give that a go.
It looks good though. That shot looks really nice.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
That's a
really
total
good.
work in progress, but yeah.
Yeah, and you're like the only one with hair options during this pandemic.
Oh yeah, wait, hold on. I should
Every other meetup, every guy is like, my hair, my hair.
I forgot to show the other thing was I was experimenting with different versions, and I also did a version with like just crazy long hair, just to see if that would create more fun flowing options.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's like a shampoo commercial.
Twilight, yeah.
I actually sent a picture of this to all my friends with the caption L'Oreal.
This is the wetness.
We should start a petition to make visual effects an essential business to handle people's hair.
Well, luckily, you can work from home for the most part.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Thanks, Carter. Super cool.
Thanks for showing that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything they want to show?
I mean, I could show something I worked on a few years ago that I haven't really shown before.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, let me see. How do I share? Oh, here, share screen. I haven't used Zoom that much, so let's see. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so there's this movie a couple of years ago called Wonder Park. It's I don't know if y'all saw it. It was like in theaters.
Yeah.
It had like Mila Kunis or something in it. And I did a pitch for it. This pitch, so we won this pitch because of these frames that I made. But then like the final looked nothing like these frames that I made. But I was trying to do they had this train scene thing. So I was trying to make a paper style renders. So I was doing this transition thing. So I did these paper renders modeled in Blender. I was trying to kind of like avoid whenever you start doing paper, you kind of start to get like the low poly look or whatever. So I was trying to avoid the low poly look and kind of go towards the paper look. So I found like some paper textures online to like, you can kind of see like the displacement and like depth of field I use in like some crayon textures to kind of like try to make it look more like paper. And so I had this was like a subway. Back then it was called, I think it was called Wonderland before it was called Wonder Park. They changed the name, but I did that. And so I did these frames, and it's like a subway, and then it transitions into a forest because the park was like set in a forest. So these are just like some frames that I did. And then I also got a end credit sequence here with I use the music from Coraline because I don't know, that's just the music we had. And I did that cool glitter effect. I actually had like I found a Blender script where I could convert the particles to like be used to render in Maya, to like export to Maya and render. So I was able to do that cool glitter effect. I don't know if you can see it on the Zoom thing there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then
Very
I had
good.
this.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, let me skip ahead because it's a long sequence. Then I had this window thing going on with the model I made earlier.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's a little pitch that I did, and unfortunately I left the studio shortly after, but then I realized like a few months later that they had won the pitch because of these frames that I had done for them. So
nice.
It was a cool little thing that I did a couple years ago.
Nice.
Good
I
job.
like that kind of crinkly paper look. It really feels like paper that's been kind of crumpled up and then unfolded again. How much of that is geometry versus displacement versus like bump maps?
Well, it was actually like super low poly geometry. Here, maybe I can go back to that stuff. Let me see. Yeah, so it was like I would say it was mostly displacement maps because it's just like the geometry was pretty low poly, and I was just like kind of just like pulling all the vertices all over the place, and then I created a lot of edge loops like around the edges so that it would like kind of retain like the cut, like the scissor cut kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
So I created a lot of edge loops so that when I subdivide it, I could subdivide it and then do like the displacement and stuff like that. So
the displacement map that you used, was that procedurally generated, or did you take photos of paper or something?
I just found photos of paper on the internet, and then I pulled them through. I think there's this app called Crazy Bump. So I pulled them through the app, and then it gave a convincing look. So yeah, it looked cool.
It looks great.
Thanks. Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, I would have thought that was real paper.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to make it look as realistic as possible, and it turned out pretty realistic, I guess.
Cool. Right on. Thanks, Joseph. Anyone else?
I got something I can show.
Yeah, let's have it.
All right. Let's see. I should share my whole screen, you say?
Yes.
Okay. You guys see anything here?
Yeah. You can see the Lincoln Memorial.
Great.
Sorry, that's
Hang on. Where'd it go? I don't know how to use Zoom. I apologize.
Oh no, that's okay. We're seeing your desktop.
Yeah, well, I had it open, and now I don't know where it went. Let's see. Let me stop sharing for a second here. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm trying this again. Yeah. Okay. Okay. What are you looking at? Can you see the memorial?
Yep, we can see the Lincoln Memorial with what looks like the Pieta inside of it.
Yes. All right, so the story behind this blend file is when I was working at Barnstorm VFX, we did a lot of stuff with a destroyed version of the Lincoln Memorial. Mm-hmm. And so I created like some pillars and stuff for it. And then when I finished working there, I couldn't get the project out of my head. So I decided to actually make a full version of it for myself just for fun. So it's pretty well detailed. I can go in here and fly around. So you can see like the whole ceiling and everything, all the columns I made from scratch. I don't have a model of Abraham Lincoln, so I'm still scouring the internet for a solution for that. So I just put the Pieta in there as a placeholder. And there aren't really any shaders on anything at the moment. I was just mainly doing this as a modeling project, seeing how accurate I could get it to the dimensions and the look of the actual thing. So I found blueprints online. I found a 360 walkthrough on YouTube that I used for a lot of reference on things. So this is a pretty detailed model, pretty accurate to real life. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
Looks great.
If you threw a sun and sky in there, you could probably get some cool like daytime lighting stuff going through those pillars.
Yeah. I've played around with doing some renders. What the heck did I just do? But I haven't, done anything with shaders to speak of, so there isn't really much to show as far as that goes.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time doing stuff like all this detail on the outside, and
Yeah,
like
my
these
eye
things
goes
are a
straight
bit
there. That looks nuts.
Yeah, used a lot of instancing. These guys look a bit blobby because there's a lot of detail in there that's really small scale that I would do textures for. But yeah, like even these little guys, little greebly bits up here. A lot of little
scattering marble shader could look pretty cool in that.
Yeah,
too. You could probably make something really quick.
Yeah, someday I'll probably give it a actual treatment for the shaders and stuff. But the main thing I'm looking for right now is a model of Lincoln. So if anybody knows where I can get a nice model of Lincoln for hopefully cheap or free,
Got all these new sculpting tools. You could learn all the new sculpting tools.
Yeah, you could just sculpt it.
That's a whole other can of worms, though. So I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like somebody must have like photo scanned it, right? It has to.
You'd think. Yeah, I looked all over the internet though and couldn't find any LiDAR scans or anything like that.
You couldn't find anything on Turbo Squid or Sketchfab or anything?
Nothing that wasn't multiple hundreds of dollars that I didn't really feel like spending.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. So that's my personal project.
You could use some of those, you could use some of those AI tools to reconstruct models from just like a perhaps,
That's an option.
I think I might have actually found one. I obviously haven't looked at it very much, but it looks. I put a link to it in the chat. It looks like it might work.
Yeah, the 3D CAD browser one. Yeah, so weird thing about that is I joined their website and you have to like upload models in order to be able to download models. So I uploaded a model. It said, oh, this may take like a month to process. So I wait a month and it says, oh, your model was rejected. I'm like, thanks, guys. So yeah, I tried to get that one, but I haven't got it.
You should just go online and buy like a scaled like tourist statue like you would get in the gift shop. It's somewhere in DC, and then
do some photo scan. Yeah, that's an idea. I should do that.
Workarounds, gotta love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Anybody else have any projects they want to talk about? Thanks, Steve. By the way, Mark Gordon, if that's your character, I love the look of that. It's super cool.
Actually, it's Commissioner Gordon from Batman because my last name is Gordon.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
That's what my students call me. So.
Ah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Any other projects from anyone?
I have another thing real cool. Can I share again?
Absolutely.
All right. I need just a second to pull it up. So I recently found out that with Blender you can take dynamic paint outputs and put them. Can you see the scene with the monkey head?
Yes.
Okay. I found you can take dynamic paint outputs and put them into like directly into the shader nodes. And so I made this whole like pack of dynamic force field shield things, and made a couple versions of it. There's like a tech version. There's a basic. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that is super cool.
Love it.
That is neat.
I applied to sell it on Blender Market and I was rejected, and then that kind of made me not want to work on the project for a while. But I think I'm gonna share it on my Twitter soon.
Is there a
So-
node for that, or did you like make a node for that or something?
Yeah, it's the attribute node. I forget what it's called. Where is it? My messy node tree here. I don't remember where it is in the node tree, but it's the attribute node, and you can just put, oh, it's because I'm in the wrong shield, that's why.
Nice.
Well, I need to clean up the node tree before I sell it or anything. But yeah, it's just the attribute node, and I think it's whatever the name of the dynamic paint layer is, you just put it into the node, and then it gives you like a white mask for it.
Oh, okay. And then you can just do whatever you want with the mask.
Yeah. And then I also made like some shields, like border things, and I made it so the node setups can work with each other. So you can have like the basic impact effect here. Yeah, so you can have the basic impact effects, and then you can use any of the different shield presets I made. So this is the chromatic one. It's just like basic chromatic aberration. Or you can
My
add
favorite part about that look is how it's almost two-dimensional despite being in 3D. It feels almost like a two-dimensional force field effect, which is kind of what we've been conditioned to expect from force field effects.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense. It feels flatter. It doesn't feel like we're looking through a refractive sphere. It feels like we're looking through a distorting 2D effect, which I kind of like better for some reason.
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that, but you're right. Here, give it a second to load because it's a big node tree. But yeah, so now you can have this like tech shield surrounding with the basic impact, and all the nodes work really well with each other.
That's super neat.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Awesome.
Very nicely done.
It seems like a lot of people put stuff on Gumroad if you don't want to go that.
Yeah, that's probably what I'll end up doing because I have a Gumroad account. I sell like some not very well-made materials on there. But eventually I'll probably put them on there. If you want updates, you can follow my Twitter. It's in the chat. If you don't want to follow my Twitter, that's fine.
All out of gum.
Oh,
Pick up one of us blobkins
awesome.
and
Okay.
stab us with the pointy end of your
Anyone
red
else?
blaster. Then massacre the monsters.
We're anyone else have any other projects they want to share? Oh, I see Saul. You're muted up, by the way. It's a pretty awesome setup you got going on there, by the way.
That's right.
In your office.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Hello, everybody. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
I cannot hear.
Yeah, we can see your desktop share.
Yep.
The whole bunch of cars.
Okay. Well, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
I can't hear you.
Oh dear. Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I don't know what to do. Okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna start, if you're okay with it. Okay, I can hear you, but I can see you. um, a client asked me to make a illustration for a book. So she wanted me to recreate this car. So I got some a reference from the internet, and I made this. I made this this model in Blender. It's not a very complex model, not even accurate, but it works for what I needed to do is just to have a model to show the car in different positions. Just to do this. This is the book, and
Sire, it's time to destroy
I'm working on it, so you can see the car right there.
I'm all out of gum.
And I have my model.
Instead,
I'm just passing
with the
some.
pointy end of your mighty blaster.
The
Massacre the monsters! Use the
again,
tuba of victory!
so I
Stuff
can
me
use
into
it
the
for
tuba! Let the enemy hear the
to make
sound
these
of our
illustrations,
trumpets!
the characters to interact. I won't do the characters 3D because it's too complex for me. I'm just I'm not that advanced. But here's the car, and it's been really good for me because it made the process very simple. I cannot hear, and I don't know why I can't hear. But that's it. That's it. Very simple. Thank you so much.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Sal. Okay. Anything else? This is all good stuff. Any other projects?
I can share something. So I haven't done anything with like 3D before like 2 months ago. But this is sort of like a first attempt at making a web series with like 3D, and it's using some other stuff from not just Blender obviously, but I don't know, I'm gonna see if it works because it's a YouTube video. I can share a couple seconds of like where I'm starting from.
Okay. The share desktop button is the big green one down there.
What made you want to work here?
What? Just normal things, I guess. It's a good career, pays well, and at the gate we don't have to worry about the lost souls. It was fine.
Did you like the work?
At all.
Anyways.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's just a couple seconds of when I'm trying to sort of.
So did you say you were doing some sort of motion capture type thing? How's the performance getting in there?
Yeah, I bought a motion capture suit. It's the I think it's a Naotomi one, and so yeah, we recorded body movements and other stuff, and then it's got a lot of drift, but it's kind of fun to play around with.
So are you hand keying the facial performances then, or how's the lip sync and emoting and stuff happening?
Yeah, the face is an iPad with it's through iClone, and so yeah, and so the iPad records the facial, and I match that with the performances. But
and the voice performances, who are those? Where'd you get those from? Are they actors or?
Yeah, there's some actors that I've been working with on some different projects.
Nice.
I got 3 awesome.
Very
actors,
cool.
But
Very cool. It's neat to see it fully, coming together like that.
You said you're just 2 months in?
Yep.
I think when I was 2 months in, I was still like rotating cubes. So that's awesome.
It's a fun project, and I really want to learn how to like model better so I can make full worlds and things. But yeah.
Oh man, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, very nice.
All right. Anyone else?
Could model everything by hand, or you could just like maybe buy or use Blend Swap and download a bunch of free ones. Because I found myself sometimes I'd get so stuck learning every little piece of Blender, but then like it doesn't help the story, you know. So you can just like buy. There's like everything is out there. Someone has most likely modeled what you want to make. You just download it and put a texture on it, and it works. But and then you pull it apart and you learn, of course. But yeah, no, that looks cool. I'm happy to see that.
Hey Dave, do you want to talk about? Do you want to show off Bombkin Blaster, or did you show that earlier?
No, I didn't show it, but we can end on it if you want. I know it's been what 2 hours or so.
It. You know, we got about 40 minutes left. We could have our Ask Me Anything session after this, but it seems like we're kind of wrapping up.
Yeah, I don't mind showing it really fast if you want me to.
Sure.
Give me.
Well, you use Blender for it.
Yeah,
right?
that is very accurate. Here, I'll share my screen. Oh, actually, you know what? I can't. I need to take this phone call. So sorry. Give me
okay. Yeah, no worries.
Give me a minute.
All right. Maybe we'll loop back to that. So at this point, let's see. Let me see if there was anything else. Let me desktop share. All right. So at this point in the meeting, we thought we'd try something new, which is something we've never really tried before, which is kind of like an Ask Me Anything. We've got at least 3, it sounds like probably 4 or 5 professionals on the call here. So if anybody has any questions on how to do something in Blender, there's a pretty good chance that somebody on this group has done it before. So I'm just going to open it up to the group. Does anybody have anything that they're struggling with or have a question about?
I actually have one thing that I've been struggling with recently.
Sure.
How do you create displacement maps in Blender 2.8? I haven't been able to figure that out, and it's really weird. Does anyone know how to do that?
Like a standard displacement, or
baking like a high poly to a low poly in 2.8. Before 2.8, you're able to do that, and then I mean now 2.8, the system's different, so I've been like really confused about that.
Oh yeah, I haven't baked anything since 2.8. So
what was the question? I just got on.
Oh, I was asking how do you bake displacement maps in like a high poly to low poly displacement map in 2.8?
You want a quick tutorial?
Yeah, I'd love a quick tutorial because they changed some stuff.
They did.
From 2.7.
They did. Give me a second. They did change stuff. All right. So we're gonna speed run this. Let's go. Let's go scope something.
We should call this section "Hold My Beer."
Right. One of the coolest brushes, by the way, in here is cloth. Like, look at this.
How cool is that cloth brush?
Man, it's just like playing around with it and just doing weird stuff. So, whatever. This looks great, right? This looks like a heavy object of some sort. So I'm just setting this up. Hold My Blender. That's what you should call it, Stirling. Speed tutorials, like the Ian guy. All right, so we gotta have the low poly version. So I'm gonna duplicate it, and there is a remesh add-on.
Yeah, the remesher.
Yeah, I'm gonna hide the old one really quick, and that's not bad at all. That's fine. It's lower poly. And I actually like doing a lot of things in collections. So we'll put this one here and this one here. So you have, this is the high poly, this is the low poly, high, low, high, low. All right, so then we got a shade smooth. It helps to, and this is, by the way, this is being recorded because it's going up to our YouTube channel. If Stirling, if you want to find that link. Normal map. And we'll make
I
it.
was thinking of a displacement map, not a normal
Oh,
map.
not a normal. Oh, shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Oh, I thought you said normal. My bad. Yeah. Oh, baking displacement. Oh.
I just posted a link in the chat to a YouTube video that was released a couple weeks ago from CG Matter, so that might be helpful.
Do you want to learn to draw
Man, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you said normal, and I was like, oh, normal's not too. I mean, I guess I could finish showing how to do normal. Baking displacement, though. Yeah, no, that would actually be kind of smart. Oh, I see. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I wonder if all he's doing is just baking through the same thing. Oh, generate separate. Oh, that's clever. He's separating it out as a node. Well, you do know where baking is at the very least, right? It only works.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's weird.
This one, it looks like he's using a camera technique, which might not really work for baking a high poly to a low poly.
Yeah.
His only works for flat objects, I believe.
Yeah, this one's for flat. Like 2.7 has this baking thing, and it was awesome, and I used it all the time. And then 2.8, it's gone. So
there's no way to bake displacement, huh?
Using ZBrush or like other programs.
I got you.
Just keep going back to 279. I keep 279 around for all kinds of things.
I do go back to 279 for certain things.
That is true.
Then I have to like mentally remember all the hotkeys and keep forgetting. The left click right thing messes me up.
It screws me up enough bouncing between After Effects and Nuke and Blender and DaVinci with all my hotkeys, and then I pop back into a different Blender. My brain gets broke.
Yeah. You kind of have to like remap your brain for every program.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm going to look it up. That's it. That is interesting. Baking a height map, because you'd figure it would be under here. Huh.
I know you can do it. I don't know about Blender though.
Yeah, it's weirdly missing.
I wonder if they just want you to rely on doing it with normal map stuff. Weirdly enough, but maybe, I don't know.
You could probably do it with the mist.
Maybe you could bake out a normal map and then convert it into a height map using something like Materialize or Crazy Bump or something like that, some image-based thing.
Yeah, but that doesn't really turn out so well all the time.
Yeah, those are all kind of cheats. I think if you want true display.
Yeah, I've never tried it. It was just a thought.
Yeah.
Like you can make I don't know, like the closest thing is like a vector displacement map, but that's I don't think Blender can do that one either.
I'm experimenting.
I looked it up online and I saw someone was doing, I don't know, a lot of people are doing crazy stuff with like the nodes and cycles to find some sort of like trick or like workaround, but I honestly have not been able to figure this out. So I just go back to 2.79.
I'm looking in our YouTube live stream to see if anybody's answering it, but it doesn't sound like it. So if anybody has the answer that watches this live stream later, leave a YouTube comment and we'll get it back to Joseph.
Yeah.
Cool. Good question. Really good question.
Yeah, that one had me stumped.
Our Ask Me Anything is not off to an auspicious start, right? We stumped everybody on the first question.
Done.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I have one, and it might not actually have a solution.
Sure.
But so I'm working on a video. Can you see the screen? It's got like a red glow on it.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm working on this video, and I have this shot where I have this it's rendered in Eevee. It's literally just a point light with a volume scatter background and a rock, and it looks fine in the viewport. But then when I go to render it out, I get these occasional glitches where you can see like the point light glitching through my rock. Does anyone know why that's happening? Like you can see the volumetric light through objects.
Is the light behind?
Yeah, the light's
rock or
behind
inside
it, and there's like significant distance, so it's not clipping.
Can I see your camera settings real quick?
Yeah. Like these settings?
Yeah, those settings. Maybe change your clip start to like 0.2 or something. Because I know, I don't know, sometimes that can mess things up, but honestly, I'm not sure.
It almost looks like it's happening in the viewport now. No, I don't know.
Try going the other way. Try like 0.02. I don't know.
Maybe it has to do with your step size and the volume.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's something about the rock fitting between volumetric slices or something.
Yeah.
Like the tile size?
Probably.
No, it still looks like it's going through.
Is it like a super small scale thing scene? Like if you turn on the grid, is it like small scale or is it super big or?
It's pretty small.
Huh.
Would making it bigger change that?
I'm not sure because I'm not sure about. I don't know. Maybe something you could test. If you parent it all, or yeah, you could do that.
If you've got a rock with volumetric rays casting around it from, if you're trying to cast volumetric rays directly towards the camera, couldn't you also fake that with a radial blur?
Probably.
Like, I mean, I feel like the main reason I reach for true volumetrics or even EV volumetrics is if I've got volume rays that are, casting through a window or going in a direction that we're moving through. But like, I feel like rays passing directly towards the camera is like the quintessential version where you can fake it with a zoom blur.
Yeah, I guess you're right. This would be a pretty easy shot to fake.
It is kind of a cheat though to do that.
It is a cheat, yeah. If you want to do it for real, you lose your honor because you faked your volumetrics.
I don't really care for this. This is this whole movie or video I'm making here is cheats. Everything else in it was shot with a tablecloth behind me, so I think that's enough of a cheat.
I mean, you could do the good old thing where you just disable each thing one by one and see if you still have the issue, until you like isolate the problem. But that obviously takes a while, so.
Yeah, I guess I'll try that. All right. Thank you.
Hey, you could also try using an early build of 2.83. See if the problem goes away.
Ooh, that's a good idea. I think I haven't updated.
Did they update the volumetrics in 2.83 or anything?
Well, they've fixed like hundreds and hundreds of bugs, so it's possible.
Oh yeah.
I think I'm still on like 2.81. I haven't updated in a while.
Awesome. Another good question. Any others from the group?
I'm kind of stuck on this thing. I'm kind of pissed. I want to figure it out.
What thing?
How to get the height from it. Oh, man.
Oh, the height thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question, man. That's a good one.
I'm kind of super frustrated. We don't have like proper micro displacement in Blender out of experimental mode yet. It's kind of been.
It's been like 8 years.
It's been stuck.
How long does the experiment run?
So if there's any Blender developers that listen to this live stream later, put it on the program to get it out of experimental mode because it's I still find it really glitchy and I just wish it could get some developer love.
Do any of the other like external renderers that like support Blender, such as Octane or anything, do any of those have like some sort of micro displacement built in or anything like that?
I know LuxCore does for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that could be some sort of workaround, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. All right. So, quick straw poll. What is the most interesting Blender future feature that you're looking forward to that's not in the product yet?
Are we counting? I'm psyched about open VDBs. Are we talking about 2.9 also, or like even further in the future?
Yeah, as far in the future as you want to get, right? These are features that we don't have yet. So, open VDB.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the experimental build with them in it because I'm doing a shot with VDBs in it. But so either I'm going to use the experimental build to complete the shot, or 2.9 will arrive in time and I'll do it in that version, or 2.83 will arrive in time and I'll do it in that version.
Sure.
I would love to see geometry-based motion tracking, like where you could slap like a face model onto someone's face and it would track based on the geometry automatically, which according to Sean, you need something like optical flow, which is a thing that I don't know too much about, but I don't know if it'll ever be implemented, but that's on my wish list.
The guys that make Face Builder are working on it. I don't know how.
You know this for sure?
Yeah, they mentioned that it's on their roadmap. They didn't say that it's under, like, we're gonna have one soon. It just sounds like they know to do it sometime. They know it would be a huge product. But...
Yeah, I figured they'd be the guys to do it, so that's awesome.
They've already got it working in Nuke, so I think it should be soonish.
Yeah, it's great in Nuke. I use it all the time in Nuke. It's awesome. It'll be great when it comes to Blender. But yeah, it needs optical flow, that kind of thing. So yeah, we'll see. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure that theirs uses optical flow. So
yeah,
I can't wait for the fracture modifier to make it into branch.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
They need to release an update.
I know. Yeah, big time.
I feel like it's been a holding pattern for a long time.
Yeah. Particle nodes will be fun too, though, when that comes out.
Yeah, those will be fun. I'm just excited to see all the new like procedural animation type stuff that's being developed right now.
Yep.
I'm noticing a surge of animation node tutorials because everybody knows everything nodes is kind of coming. Right? There's a big revamp coming in 2.9, right? But yeah. Cool. All right, guys and gals. Anybody have anything else they want to share?
I have another, quick question. I don't know if anyone here knows this, but why did they switch the there's a feature called it's like the filmic thing in Blender, and it's like set. It used to be set to sRGB by default. Hold on, I'm trying to find out where it is.
It's in, are you talking about color management? Is under your top tab way down the bottom.
Top tab. Yeah, the color management. It used to, the view transform used to be SR like standard, and now it's set to filmic. So whenever I import if I import an image into the compositor and I render it out, the colors are gonna be messed up unless I switch it back. So why did they switch it to filmic by default?
Because they think that most people will like that. They think that most people will they won't want to see clipped whites, that they'll want to see the full range of the colors. So it cheats it down.
Yeah, I would say for your average Blender user who's going to come in and render out like a cube with some lights on it or something, the Filmic Transform is going to give them a much nicer result. So I think for the people who aren't going to fuss with any of those settings, I think I can see why they would want to go for the more pleasing roll-off transform look.
Yes, it makes
even
sense.
if it does screw up your sRGB footage.
Yeah, I was just confused because I don't know, most renders don't have any sort of crazy color management on by default, I feel like.
I set mine to standard and saved that as my default, Blender, because that's a pain in the butt to have to change that every time.
Oh yeah.
All right. Anything else? We seem to be kind of winding down here. Sounds like it.
I found the attribute node in my node tree, so if you guys want to see, I can explain how I did the force field effect a little better.
Sure.
All right. Am I still muted?
No, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So So it's just, I have a basic dynamic paint on the sphere, and then the particles are the, what are they called, the brush objects. And so down here in the output, you can see the wet map layer is called DP wet map, and they can literally copy that into an attribute node, and then it gives you like a black and white version of the dynamic paint, and then you can add like noise and other distortions to it. And that's pretty much the basis for the whole effect.
That's great. That's really cool. Clever use of it.
Yeah. Glad you like it.
Sure wish I'd known about that a few years ago when I was making a project with a lightsaber, dynamically cutting some object, but maybe it wasn't available back then. Who knows? That was a while ago.
Good use for it.
I haven't messed with the dynamic paint too much. Is that like a bakeable effect so that you could? Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can bake it out to an image sequence.
Yeah, or you can bake it into like the vertex groups, and it works in real time. It's quite useful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, the advantage to baking it to an image sequence is you're not limited by the resolution of your geometry. So.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? I'm just going to keep asking you until we run out of topics. Anything else? Anyone wants to show up?
So sorry.
No, go for it.
I have another quick question because we were talking about the resolution of the geometry. Does anyone know if there's any way to like blur stuff in Cycle's nodes?
There's a lot of context behind that.
I got the.
It's basically computationally impossible.
Oh, fun.
You can you could distort your vector with a really tiny, way fuzzed out Voronoi noise though, and actually distort your texture coordinates to kind of fuzz them out into space with a vector.
Oh.
I think that's probably the closest you can get.
But are you talking about distorting the texture or distorting the geometry? So it looks kind of fuzzy, out of focus.
The texture, so that I can.
The texture is actually, I mean, it really is about the distorting the coordinates. There's a video, I think, what's his name, Bartek's group or someone like that. It's called Manipulating Textures Like a Boss. And he shows something like that where he can actually defocus the texture, and it's actually quite effective.
All right, I'll look for that. Thank you.
Let's see if I can find it.
All right. Anyone else?
Real quick,
Sure.
Has anyone played with the Blender motion capture app for facial and body motion capture?
I tried it with the Kinect.
Let me. Yeah, it's an app on the that works with the iPhone 10 and 11 by Pascal Jardin. And so like that's an emoji sort of template that will track the data. Then you email the mocap data to yourself and retarget it onto your model.
Oh,
And
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, I've been playing with it a bit. I haven't had too much success retargeting it just yet because that's just sort of where my learning curve is. I didn't know if anyone had played with it. I left a link to it, an article about it in the chat.
Yeah, that looks kind of cool.
Okay. Well, yeah, if anyone gets a chance to mess with it between now and the next time, let me know and I'll try and have a better demo set up for it.
Yeah, I'd love to try that out. I don't see the link. Where?
Let's see. Yeah, there's an ArtStation link. Let me try and find it again and repost.
Oh, you left it higher up.
Maybe, sorry, I was getting phone calls real quick. Let's see. But yeah, you can search for it on the App Store just by searching Blender Motion Capture. And then there's an add-on that you download.
Wait, it's specifically for Blender?
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Let's see. Blender Motion. There have been a few. Let's see. Reface Blender Motion Capture Retargeting. Pascal Jardin.
Oh, wow. That's really neat.
Yeah. Okay, someone found it. Cool.
Found the app.
Oh, good. Let me drop this in here. This might be an earlier release of it. It's gone on to include full body captures in sort of a rudimentary way. They need some cleanup. Like if we could clean up the model the way we would clean up a motion track in VFX, that would be really great, but I don't think it's there yet.
That looks awesome.
Yeah, so this is so sorry, this is like my current work in progress. So this is my house, and this is my kitchen, and this is basically I created this because I'm doing some home remodeling, or actually I'm working on this model. So this bookshelf is actually like a glass liquor cabinet, and then down here, this is my lounge, my furniture, and then out here on the patio, looking to remodel my patio. So basically, this whole model is basically apply textures and mess around.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Is it all to scale?
It is exactly to scale, and it's so to scale. It's because I hired a guy to come in and basically LiDAR scan the whole interior of my house and my patio, and so it's like to the millimeter.
So could you put on an Oculus Quest and then walk around your house in Blender?
Pretty much.
That's all I want to see.
Yeah, I'm fully planning to do that now with Blender VR support. So yeah, I'm gonna walk my wife through because I gotta figure out how we're gonna redecorate.
And you don't need to live in your house anymore. You could just live in VR. So you know where everything is.
I've done that before. Actually, I like creating like really zen scenes, like island on a lake.
Oh yeah.
Then they just chill out in VR, right? Get away from it all. You can't go external with COVID-19. You got to go internal.
Yeah, I know.
Cool. All right, everybody. That's it. It looks like we're about 10 minutes to usual meeting close. I want to thank everybody for presenting today. It was really great. It was so participatory, which is, I think, a benefit we get with doing all these things virtually. Dave, Sean, Joseph, any words on the way out?
Not for me. Thank you again for organizing it all and getting it together.
Yeah, well, we'll all have to have like a bagel off of Blend Swap or something, right? I normally bring bagels to our meetings, but alas, everybody ordered delivered.
Hopefully next meeting we can be in person or something.
It'd be nice.
Yeah, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Well, have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Until then, happy blending.
Yeah.
When is the next meeting?
Yep, Sterling. Take care, everyone. Be safe.
We usually space them out about 3 months away from each other, just so there's a new version of Blender and there's enough to talk about. So whenever 2.90 comes out, or we get a early version of it, that's when our next meeting will be. Awesome. All right, guys. Everybody, have a great rest of your day. Bye now.
Bye. It's really cool seeing all the artwork.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Cheers.